I absolutely agree with what you've just said. I do believe that part of the equation here is the City of London. Bearing in mind that people must remember that the City of London is different to London. So that you've got two mayors, but a lot of people in America don't realise that. You've got the Lord Mayor of London, who is directly involved with the City of London. He controls that. They have got people called Rembrandters that sit in Parliament. Any financial acts of Parliament must be approved by the Rembrandters. Now that is certainly an old system and a way of, and it was actually, the City of London was actually protected in the Magna Carta, the same as other cities and towns, except the other cities and towns never stood up for their rights, which they should have done. But you're absolutely right. But again, Breaking Spectre, let me just put this to you. Again, I've said this a few times. Do you remember when POTUS went, not this time, the last time I believe it was, to the economic meeting in Switzerland, where he took
Davos.
he took most of the cabinet. It was really unusual. I don't think no one's ever done that before. But I believe he told Switzerland their future. He told them, you're not doing this anymore, and this is what's going to happen. And I think they know, and they know what's coming. Bearing in mind the City of London, the Vatican, Washington, D.C., the Federal Reserve, the Bank of England, and then you've got to remember that people that sit above that are the Bank of International Settlements in Switzerland. And that is what you're going to switch off.
Yeah, and not only that, mind you, what was said to Theresa May at Davos, not this year, but last year, Theresa May was neutered, right?
Yeah.
Right. That was Q's message after that.
Yep. So you're
very interesting. But as with that, we know that the deep state actors will certainly try their best to thwart it. And of course, this morning via Zero Hedge as well, about 2 o'clock this morning, we had the UK deep state plots to thwart Brexit. And that was an article by George Callahan out of the Duran. So we know that regardless of how good this all looks on paper, how well laid the plan may be, there is going to be some level of shenanigans that they will try and play. And they say there is much talk about extremism in the UK. It is the Remainers who are the most dangerous extremists. Foam-flecked and swivel-eyed. They are hell-bent on overthrowing democracy. Make no mistake, the British deep state is striving to thwart the settled will of the British people. It is lugubrious to note that the deep state may yet succeed. So that being said, Daddy Dragon, what ways do you see, I guess, as of right now, what ways do you think they could possibly use to thwart the will of the people this late in the game?
That's a good question.
You think they'll try and stifle people from getting out to the polling places and trying to vote?
Well, there's two things I'd say to you. First is it's the amount of people that vote. It's the people that vote that can change things. But someone, and I believe it was Stalin, said it's not people voting that elect the leaders; it's the people that count the votes.
Right. It's not the vote that counts; it's he who counts the votes.
Exactly. And we've already got a situation. You've seen them attack the counting system in America. They're already attacking. We know for a fact they're attacking the counting system in this country now. They've already barred some of the Brexit Party's registered counters coming in to check. They've already barred them. Right, so we know there's some skullduggery going in the background there, for example. But the next level, or on par with that level, and this is again where your president is absolutely on the money. The enemy of the people are the mainstream media. They are the people, and now what they're doing again in the background, why again this is a case against Facebook and social media. They've seen how powerful the people can be, and they are going to use the mainstream media to keep all this quiet. And that's what we've got to break through. We need to make sure that these mainstream media individuals that are part of this corruption are also indicted. And some of them, and bearing in mind the Nuremberg trials, bearing in mind in the UK we had someone called Lord Hoare who was executed after the war for propaganda for the Nazis. That is the level of justice that we need to see to make sure we send a clear message out.
Yeah, the loud and clear and loud deterrent, right?
We must deter. And again, your president's right. I think people in America, I think not the people on chat, by the way, who I believe are 100%, they get it. They wouldn't be on this channel unless they didn't get it. President Trump is on the money again because he said, I'm doing this so no other president ever has to go through this again.
Trying to secure the constitutional triad of the branches.
Exactly. And that's why he takes them slings and arrows for you. He is protecting your constitution going forward and protecting the republic going forward. That's the difference. But let me just finish off a point to Breaking Spectre and yourself about voting and those who are counting the votes. The more people that vote, whether it be for the Brexit Party or President Trump, the more difficult by numbers it becomes to cheat. Because it's such an overwhelming force, they can't fiddle it. That's like, it makes it very difficult for them.
Yeah, it's true because the numbers, either people will doubt the numbers because, hey, I voted, that number's too low, or everybody I know voted for Brexit. Why are the numbers too low? That kind of concept, right?
Yeah, exactly. And physically, it's very. If you've got observers, which we have in our counts, if they're let in. If you've got observers there, I've been to the count. I've actually personally been there, right? So you're watching the people count. I put it this way, on Brexit night, on the 23rd of June 2016, I was in my local counting office and I was watching the employees of the local council, count the votes. I could see the votes. As they counted through them, you could see the crosses and where they was, right? So all I did was made an assessment. Within 2 hours of being in there, I called it as between 60 and 75% in favour of leave within 2 hours of the votes coming in, right? And guess what? I was bang on the money. But the difference was there was so many of us walking around and looking and checking that there was no skullduggery. It made it very difficult for them. They couldn't roll a bundle up of
stuff the ballot, if you may, right?
Yeah, they couldn't do it because they had too many eyes on them.
Hey, Daddy Dragon, real quick, Mayberry asked out of chat, does the UK have a system of martial law, and would they use that to stop their people from voting?
Do they have a system of martial law? Technically, yeah. Again, the only time the Constitution can be suspended is in a time of war. Also, the Queen can prorogue Parliament, so she can actually suspend Parliament and say, I don't like what's going on here, and I don't like the people in this government and what they're doing. That could trigger the Queen to prorogue Parliament and then call an election. There's lots of things that could be happening here. So there is technically that could happen at any time.
But to that point, I think probably if voting is going on today, concludes this evening, it's highly likely, in my opinion, based on what we witnessed here with our own election systems and the voting systems / voting machines, that the likely place where the vote will get stolen is not in the voters that go out, but in the counting of the votes.
Yeah. And if, Daddy, I heard you say correctly that it's 10 GMT, right? Which would be, that's in about half an hour from us.
So it's 5:30 p.m. here. At 10 p.m. here, voting stops. That's it. The election's over.
Yeah. So that's you're 9 hours ahead. So that's about 1 o'clock here. That's 30 minutes from now.
No, it wouldn't be 30 minutes from now, because it's still 5, 6.
1 o'clock. 1 o'clock our time is 10 o'clock your time.
10.
No, they're only about 6-7 hours ahead. I think 6 right now.
Yeah, sorry. I reverted back to my time in Germany. That's 9 hours. Sorry.
Daylight savings time.
You're right.
Yeah. So roughly
-5. Sorry.
In 5 hours time, whatever your time is, in 5 hours time, that's when the election in this country ends.
Yeah. It's 5 p.m. time. Sorry. I apologize, chat.
That's right.
Reverted to history when I was trying to calculate back. What time is it at home?
Well, that's a bit like the calendar. I won't go into that, but the calendar changed when you could lose 3 months just by crossing the channel at one stage. My opinion about everything that's going on, I mean, there's been some absolutely disgraceful things happening today. An elderly gentleman supporting the Brexit Party outside of an election office, polling station today, had a milkshake thrown all over him. He just happened to be a retired elderly paratrooper, decorated for his bravery, and yet the left, the Remainers, decided to throw a milkshake over him. Again, disgraceful behaviour.
They're ribbing on you a little bit, Homesteader. Since I thought Homesteader was a good number.
I saw Skeeter leading the out there.
Come on now.
I was just about to type, says numbers, yes. Time, not so good.
Yeah.
No. Hey, bounce around the world and then come back at me.
Yeah, I know the feeling. Wow. What a time to live.
Yeah. Boy, it would be great if it goes as we suspect it goes. That would be really, really awesome, for both countries.
So
and let alone the rest. Sorry, go ahead, Spectre.
I was going to say, so it makes you wonder then. Q's been on a little bit of a hiatus. When do you think the most probable time would be for him to actually come back to give some confirmations of things going on?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, let's say yesterday at 2000 hours, 8 p.m. was 10 days.
Yep.
Today.
Can I just say as well, I've just seen Patriot Reload, Gary B in the chat there.
Hey, you made it.
It's a pleasure filling in for you, my friend, but we can never fill your shoes. The audience are crying out for you, and unfortunately you've got a problem with your internet.
We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
Yeah, we've got your show, Gary.
Man, at least he could have dropped us the bundle of stuff, right?
Yeah. Tell us what you was going to talk about, Gary. Yeah. Anyway, is there any questions from anyone, whether TN, Breaking Spectra, anyone else out there, chat, Gary, anyone?
No, it's just fascinating to watch all the stuff come through, the back and forth, and man, this Brexit stuff, 2 years in the making, or 2+ years now. I guess it's been since the initial vote, right? And it's just been propaganda, misinformation, disinformation all the way along, trying to keep track of this. Then you drop this little nugget with Robin and that you had the interview on here a couple Fridays back now, and state, in fact, and it's pretty irrefutable at this point. And even then, what was it, The Guardian or BBC, I forget, kicked the article out trying to discredit that. And it's just how the media works to try and sway public opinion in the negative when they have no interest whatsoever in putting the truth out.
Oh man, I got something. Song Babe called out in chat if we saw her comment before, which I did not. She calls out Q drop 523, and the only word in that Q drop is checkmate.
Yep, works for me.
Works for me, even though it's not the kind of speaking the 1 year delta in traditional sense, time-wise. Very interesting being the only Q drop. I'm going to try to bring in within a few, but that's pretty interesting. Thank you, Song Babe. Which, by the way, you guys, I'm going to put on in chat a small digression, but for your enjoyment, I'm going to put a link to Song Babe's music, which is superb. And I recommend that you take some time when you're not on Soapbox to play her songs. They're excellent.
Hey, Daddy Dragon, Truth Just to UK says, just to inform you, we will not find out the result of the vote until Sunday/Monday, as other EU countries vote on different days. So that would put us likely at the end of the 3-day weekend, which potentially, I guess, would mean that we might not see if these work in concert to declass until potentially after our long 3-day weekend here for Memorial Day weekend.
The direct answer to that is the election in this country is over. So as it affects this country, declass can happen. I will tell you this, and I've already put a video out on my YouTube channel with an update on the court case. We have actually got one of the best lawyers in Europe working on our case and presenting our case in the Royal Courts of Justice with us. He's a specialist in international, European and English constitutional law. He's German, speaks fluent German, French and English. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because he's actually standing for, and he's hated by Merkel and all of the European commissioners. He is actually standing for the alternative for Germany, AfD. So just to let you know, he is one of our barristers who's accepted the brief and is now instructed. So yeah, there is a lot going on in the background, and there are other, I think it's 765 members of the European Parliament to be elected over this coming week, finishing, I believe, tomorrow, and then the count is up until Sunday evening. But our election period in this country is over at 10 o'clock tonight.
Okay, so let's look at it from, if I may, because that discussion brought a question to my mind. All right, so on the UK's vote, it's over at 10. The others may be later. That's fine. The question, it's kind of like the preface. The question is, what are the other EU members voting on? Allowing UK to exit, or the concept of their respective impacts to their membership? I'm not versed on that, and that's why I asked Daddy Dragon. What are the other? For example, I'm using that just as an example. What is Germany voting aspect of it as it relates to Brexit, or is their elections have a multitude of things to do, and Brexit is just one of the things?
Yeah, they're all voting. Everyone obviously stands for something different. Alternative for Germany actually, that although they are very negative towards the European Union, for example, they absolutely, so part of what they're standing for is that the euro should not exist. Everyone should go back to their standard currencies. And the reason for that is because it puts the economies of nations out of kilter with each other. And I'm going to give you a good example of that. For example, the USSR, they had a single currency throughout the USSR. Right. The star state, if you like, if you want to call it that, was Russia. Russia was the biggest economy. It's almost the same as sort of Germany now, or the UK, or in particular, you're talking about England's economy controlling the other nations because it's their currency, it's the way they do things. So the alternative for Deutschland, one of the things they're strongly opposed to and want to see it completely and utterly shut down is the euro. Why is that so important? Because that's part of the European Union's core principles for the European Union. And it's one of the things that destroyed Greece, Italy, Portugal, for example.
Yep, they got the Italian bankster Mario Draghi, head of the ECB, to thank for that one.
Yep. So, again, there's a lot of things. I'll try and simplify it for people. I'll be honest with you, it's not that complicated. But everyone's got to make sure that they understand what the four principles of the European Union are. One is that you lose your sovereignty. Two, that you lose your currency. Three, that you use any control over your army. It's controlled by the European Commission, not by the Parliament. And four, complete and utter political union. That is it. That's it's the USSR by another name.
Yep. Yep, it'll be a wonderful thing to see when countries actually regain their sovereignty, and of course you see in the European Union the likes of Poland, and you see Hungary and some of those nations actually stand up against the policies of the ECB, the EU under Juncker, all those things, refusing to take the migrants net that are being foisted upon them, all part of George Soros's plan for migration. We know all that stuff. We've seen the documents. You lose your identity as a country when you start throwing these people in. We know that the populations are in decline across the U.S., across Europe, across Japan, China, all the like. Why? Well, take a look at our food supply, our air, our water. Everything is being poisoned to death. So what's their plan? Well, bring in the migrants. We'll have a replacement population in order that we could have to control and make docile and use to our advantage. And that's exactly what they've done through these Trojan horses. Still trying to do it through our border today.
I absolutely understand what's going on with the US and the attack on the US. Can I just say one more thing there? That you recently had the Prime Minister of Czech Republic, I believe it was, that come to the US. The Czech Republic have actually changed their constitution to allow every citizen in the Czech Republic to be armed.
Right.
The second thing is, against the EU, they have more people with concealed carry in the Czech Republic than anywhere else in Europe. I mean, literally, I believe the figure is somewhere in the region of 180,000 concealed carry within the Czech Republic. Bearing in mind, one of my favourite weapons is the CZ-75. You've got to understand that for a government to do that, what they've done means they trust the people, and the people trust the government.
As the saying goes, an armed society is a polite society.
Correct.
Yeah. And I think Switzerland is about the only other one at this point that has mandated carrying of firearms, and they even provide the ammunition to go with it, do they not?
That's correct. That is absolute, and they never ever talk about that. Over 50% of the population of Switzerland are armed with military weapons, with 50 rounds of ammunition every year paid for by the government.
And Israel is another one because they get to keep theirs once they leave compulsory military.
Well, the EU Maastricht Treaty absolutely allows for conscription. So people need to be very aware of that. Can I just ask one other question? And this is a question to TN Homesteader, Break Inspector, and to chat. I'm very interested in this. I haven't been able to concentrate on what's going on. Why was Joe M blocked or banned or had his account disabled on Twitter?
I do personally do not know. All I know is that it was suspended. When you go to his account, it just stayed suspended.
Yeah, I saw that come through. I don't know the answer to that. I do know, and I think I've seen in the last couple of days that there has been some stuff that he's posted regarding the whole in the Matrix stuff, which I'm not going to really get into here, and the ties and tie back to the Will Summer article that ensued out of the Daily Beast. I think we covered that briefly here on this channel in the last day or so. But whether or not it was actually tied to that, I can't say for certain.
Right. Okay.
Let's see. Terry Rutman said in chat, says he said STFU troll to a troll. So
too much truth. Yeah, there's probably that as well.
Oh, hang on. So Seizing Pixels has said, Daddy Dragon, check his Gab, which I haven't done. It was some lady who was harassing him. She then reported him, and it's now permanently banned. Is that the words, Seizing Pixels, is that the words of Joe M? Is he actually telling people on Gab why his Twitter account has been taken down?
Another comment from Elaine H says, Joe M got suspended. 0 Hour 1 is claiming responsibility. Also Kim M. Interesting.
And there's a question there from Dynamex, Danny Dragon. Will Merkel resign and go away? I want you to, that's a really good question you've just asked. And I don't think people realise in this country how much Theresa May is absolutely abhorred by the public, right? Bearing in mind how much she's disliked and she hasn't resigned, Merkel and her are at the same pod. They're peas in the same pod. Do I think she'll resign and walk away? No. I think you would need to destroy the party and anyone associated with it. And I don't mean physically. I mean by the ballot box. And people like Dr. Gunnar Beck to move into that political sphere where they can stop that type of person, meaning a socialist communist, getting in power again. So I'm reading through some of these things. If maybe she was in line for a milkshake. Listen, we're going to have to stop making jokes about milkshakes. It sort of justifies what they're doing, even though we've got a sense of humour and they haven't.
MOC9M says, in the meanwhile, in Canada, the Trudeau government is planning to announce a full gun prohibition confiscation at the June 3rd Women's Conference in Vancouver with New Zealand Prime Minister. Outstanding.
Well, I think that if we have true constitutionalists put back in our parliament, bearing in mind that our guns were taken by policy, not by law, our actual Constitution states that we have the right to bear arms. It's where the Second Amendment came from, the Bill of Rights 1688-89. I personally believe that policy will be removed, and we will be able to purchase and train with firearms in the protection of this nation in the UK.
Well, if nothing else, you needed to decree it and declare it as so.
Don't forget, Trudeau in Canada is a Fabian. His father was a Fabian as well. Someone, no, well, I won't read that one out, but it's unbelievable has just made a comment in there. You can read that one yourself. All right, my neighbourhood passing the international water boundary. Well, that is the update from me. All I can say is that I will be pursuing legal case against Facebook because they've obviously blocked me a few times in the past. So if anyone is interested in that, anyone from the UK, maybe other people can join it, I don't know. But certainly we could put the case in the UK. So anyone interested in that, don't forget to jump on Robin Tilbrook's website because he's waiting for people to say, you know, do you want X, Y, Z? So
I guess, Daddy Dragon, there's one more point we might bring up in the last few minutes here. Julian Assange, we know that we've been kind of keeping tabs on his stuff here going on We the People Insider. For those who tune in over there, know that I've been bringing this up on fairly regular occasions. We do know that as of about the 29th or 30th, I believe, is when his next hearing is, and I think at that point is when the extradition may be decided as to whether or not he is indeed going to go to the U.S. What do you foresee potentially coming out of that?
Potentially, first of all, I believe, this is my personal opinion, that he's a star witness. I personally believe he will be extradited to the United States of America. He will give evidence, I believe, against the Clintons. And I think key to that evidence will be where the emails come from. In other words, it wasn't a Russian hack. It was Seth Rich, and that links the murder to Seth Rich. I believe the RSA and Admiral Rogers will be presenting evidence that indicates that they was behind the murder. That's my personal opinion. Where does it leave things? I believe he will be given immunity. I believe they will then seek to make penalties for anyone using it. The issue here is not Assange. The issue here in reality is this cover-up of using or nefarious people using the hammer. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that those in the know on this situation know 100% that is the biggest issue facing the Republic at the moment, and they need to make sure that they deal with it. One of the ways of dealing with that is to extradite him over there for him to give evidence, and you will see the biggest boom ever. I believe, again, still on point with what you've just asked, there are certain elements that has gone on in the background, even though this is going to be an extremely powerful D-class. I believe there's some things that are being held back, and President Trump will use as leverage against the UK government to ensure that Assange comes to no harm and will be delivered to the United States of America.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a very fun and interesting thing to watch. I think the amount of information that's going to drop is going to be immense. I think this is probably the place you want to tune into. You know, I try to square this against something like what Kim Clement said, you know, in his prophecies, and says, you know, the mainstream media or the media will be forced to tell the truth. So it begs the question, okay, what is the media? Is it what we see today on the boob tube, the mainstream media, the Mockingbird media, the lamestream media, whatever your preference is to call that, or is it the new media, like what we have here on Patriot Soapbox, on We the People Insider, X22, SGT Report, and the like? Q tells us we are the news now. So I tend to believe it's the latter. I think this is the place to be when all that stuff hits. It's going to be immense. It's going to be tough to stay on top of, and it's going to be rapid fire.
Definitely the place to get the non-deep state perspective.
Well, I absolutely agree with what you've both just said there. We're truth tellers. One thing I will say, and again on point to what you just said, remember what happened when a number of different individuals pointed towards the AmericanReporter.org. The site crashed. We have known over the last 2 years that Q has been steadily testing the website and making sure it is resilient to the amount of traffic that is going to be heading its way. That means from that information, it needs to get to people like us to present it and push it out. Free of charge, I may add. None of us do this as a living. We're doing it because we're truth tellers and we're patriots. That's the difference.
Yeah, and mind you, it's not only us that's pushing this. We do require and ask, obviously, those in chat to take the links, pass them around. You hear 412 say that. You hear all of us over here say that. It's our job to try and disseminate the information, especially in these times where the censorship is fervent. We can see the games that YouTube plays. We see the games that Twitter plays and trying to bury and shadow ban. Same thing with Facebook. So we are going to have to handhold this. We are going to have to hand deliver a lot of this stuff and get the information out there against all odds.
Well, and again, I've just put the link to my Twitter account out there. That's not to advertise my Twitter account. That tweet is crucially important. And one of the things that I see currently lacking that we need to tweet is we need to say, like, every day, this is what we need to do. You need to get this message out there, bang it out there, but it needs to be on point. And just for an example, how many times has Q mentioned this? How many times has Q said, you've forgotten how to play the game, that class action, do this, Nunes suing Twitter, for example. We need people to make sure that this can and will happen, but we need to get the message out.
Yep. It's kind of along the lines of what Thomas Paine said, these are the times to try men soldiers, a summer soldier and a sunshine patriot. And so here we are, folks, being the foot soldiers, the digital foot soldiers net that Flynn talks about. It's exactly what we're doing and for these specific times. So looks like we're just about to the top of the hour here. I think Conscious Abe may be in the room here and about ready to hand over. Do either of you guys have any closing thoughts before we sign off on this Thursday afternoon, filling in for Mr. Gary B?
Aside from, holy moly, 2 hours already?
Yeah, it went by fast.
No kidding. And I never got to my Constitution issue.
Maybe better save that for We the People Insider, Homesteader.
Yeah, well, yep.
Daddy Dragon, any closing thoughts?
No, I'll just say we are now going to, first of all, obviously grateful to Gary for this opportunity to come on and have this chat. There are some important issues we've discussed here, but I'd just like to say we are now handing over to the one, the only, Conscious Abe and Info, what was his name? Indie Wars. That's it. I know he's changed his name and it confuses me. Let me tell you something. You are two of my favourite presenters on this show. So you are up next and I'm going to be listening in the background, my friends.
Thanks, guys.
As Indy said yesterday, Daddy, he wanted me to convey to you the checks in the mail.
Thanks, guys. Much love. Great job today.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. Again, we kind of filled in on a fly here for Gary B with his internet issues. I do want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in. And with that, we'll go ahead and hand it over to Indy and Conscious Abe.
Later, guys.